Hello, everyone. I'd really like to thank you for spending the time with me today. We're going to talk about people. More specifically, we're going to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion here at IMA. At IMA, our products, our product offerings are diverse. Our customers are diverse, and so is our workforce. Our continued success is dependent upon our ability to understand and leverage that diversity. We seek to go out and hire the best and the brightest people in the country, bring those folks into our organization, and provide them with great opportunities to learn, grow, develop, so they can deliver a great product to our customer base. People like you. And the diversity that you bring to this organization is really what gives us our competitive advantage. That is what successful companies do. The common thread that we have in those companies is really the same. It's really about people. People like you, people like myself. So you, your team, your customers, the support staff, all of these people who make our organizations great, we all have the same thing in common, and that is, at the end of the day, we go home to take care of our families. That's why we work. We go home to take care of our families. So when I think about diversity, or when I define diversity, it's really about the similarities and differences that exist among people. What happens in many instances, we want to go directly to race and gender. Well, we are significantly more than our race and our gender. We have to consider things like thinking styles, marital status, family situation, just so many different things. And things that really impact us could be things like where we grew up, teachers who taught us, parents who reared us, the neighborhoods that we grew up in, the media that we consume. All of those things really impact who we are as human beings. So when we think about diversity, we must understand that, yes, there are similarities, and yes, there are differences that make us who we are. That does not mean that those things are right, wrong, good, or bad. It's just what it is. And so when you think about diversity, I do want you to think in a much broader sense. And the most important thing that I want you to understand is that diversity means you. Diversity means you. It's not those other people. It's not those people who don't look like me. It's not those people who don't act like me. It's not those people who don't live in my neighborhood. It's not those people who don't live in my country. Diversity means you. We are all diverse. The next piece I want to touch on is equity. What is equity? Equity is really about giving everybody the opportunity and the tools that they need in order to just compete fairly. All things are not equal. The playing field is not necessarily level. One size does not fit all. And so because of that, the question is, as a leader, am I providing my teammates, am I providing my team members the things that they need to be successful? Again, keep in mind, everyone isn't alike. People learn differently. So am I providing the tools that people need in order to be successful? Then it comes down to inclusion. I will tell you, you can have diversity, you can have equity, but if you have no inclusion, you really have nothing. So if I were to go out and survey your team members, and I ask the question, how included do they feel? On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being not included, 10 being completely included, how would they score? How would they score relative to how you treat them? Are you an inclusive leader? That's what it's all about. We must have inclusion. And in order to get there, it's really about how do I make sure that every single person on my team gets the things that they need and they have that sense of belonging. So when I think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I want to just touch on those two bookends first. Diversity, in my mind, is a fact. Based on the definition that I gave you a few moments ago, diversity is a fact. Inclusion, that's a choice. Are you making the choice to include everyone on your team? Are you making a choice to make sure that every single team member is getting the things that they need in order to be successful? Are you creating an environment where people want to come in? Are you creating an environment where people have a sense of belonging, and so that they're going to go and they're going to bust their tails for you and for our clients and our customer base? That's inclusion. That's where we need to be. So as leaders, we've got to make sure that we're doing our part. One of the challenges, however, is with all the things that are going on in society, there's some people that just find themselves just bundled up in a big ball of nerves because they're afraid to say anything. We've got to make sure that we don't create that type of environment. There are things that happen in society, absolutely, and they will always happen in society. But the question is, can we have those conversations? Can we have some of those courageous conversations? I say to you, yes, you can. It's really about just communicating and getting to know your people. So spend the time with your people, both individually and collectively. Get to know them, get to know what motivates them, get to know what drives them, because that's what's really important. And when you do that, they're going to be willing and able to go out and really deliver for you. They're going to be willing and able and have the strong desire to go out and make a difference for not only themselves, for the team, and for our customers. So speaking of just some of the things that have been happening in society, and again, these are things that have been happening for years, one may ask, how do I have a courageous conversation? I find it to be very interesting. One of the comments that I made to a very senior executive one day was to simply ask the question, and the question was, how are you doing? If you just sit down with a person and ask, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Based on things that might have been happening in the news or in the community, et cetera, it is amazing what you get when you just ask the simple question, how are you doing? And when that person or that group of people, when they start talking, don't make it about you. You ask the question, don't make it about you. These conversations are really not that difficult to have. What happens is, if we begin to make it about us, then we begin to bring in certain emotions and some deep-seated and unconscious things that begin to come into mind. And we're going to talk a little bit about unconscious bias in a few moments. But what I say to you is just simply ask your people, how are you doing? How are you feeling about things? And let the conversation flow. If you're an inclusive leader, what you will find is that you can have those conversations quite easily. So I challenge you to do that. So when it comes to our business and diversity, equity, and inclusion, why is it important? Well, it's important because it truly does impact our business. When I think about the business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion, I make it real simple. And here's how I sum it up. When you think about business, the only thing that we truly have in business are people. If you really think about it, the only thing that we truly have in business are people. You have no product without people. You have no strategy without people. The offices and the buildings that you are in, they didn't just show up one Tuesday morning. People built them. And so with that, I would contend that people are critical to your business. And the one thing that I know about people is that people are diverse. We've had this conversation already. People are diverse. There are similarities and differences that exist among people, so people are diverse. Even when it comes to you and your family, if you think about it, you and your siblings, probably not just alike. When you think about your children, probably not just alike. So there's diversity in the family. There's diversity within your organization. People are diverse. And so if I go back to business and we agree that people are critical to our business, and we agree that people are diverse, I would therefore contend that diversity is critical to our business. So when you really think about it, we must get the people piece of this right. We must absolutely get the people piece of it right. Now, I admit that's my simple way of summing it up, but there have been many studies that have also looked at this situation. And one of the studies that I like the most is a study done by McKinsey. What McKinsey did was they went out and they interviewed several hundred companies around the world, and they've been doing this study for many years now. And what they have found consistently is that those organizations that have women at the senior levels in their organizations, those organizations were more likely to outperform other companies by about 15%. When you put ethnic diversity into that mix, that number then jumps to 35%. Those are big numbers. Those are important numbers, and any organization would love to have those numbers. Now imagine if you take that diversity at those senior levels and now you spread it throughout your organization. the possibilities are absolutely incredible. But what happens is our unconscious bias sometimes comes into play. Sometimes that gets in the way of things. What do I mean by that? I'm interviewing people, and if I like that person, all of a sudden, that's a good person. I'm going to hire that person because I really like them. And you've kind of forgotten about the technical skills that you need for the job. Now, one may say, okay, Tony, that's kind of simplistic. However, there have been studies that have been done also that have talked about people who have sent in resumes. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a specific example. There was a study that was done, and what they did was they sent out several hundred resumes, and some of those resumes had black-sounding names, and some of those resumes had white-sounding names. And the resume was the exact same, had the exact same information, except for the name. The people that had, the resumes that had white-sounding names were 50% more likely to be called in than those with black-sounding names. Why? It was just the name. And if you really think about it, if you or I are looking for talent, we want talent. What does the name have to do with it? But for whatever reason, our unconscious mind basically takes us there. So we have this unconscious brain processing that's getting in the way of making really good decisions. So what is unconscious bias, or this unconscious brain processing? It's really the process that your brain goes through, quite frankly, to keep us safe. When you think about, let me try this. Have you ever been in an airport, you're sitting there and you're people watching? And as you're people watching, you begin to make up stories about people. You know, this person, fill in the blank, that person, fill in the blank. Where does all this come from? Where does all this come from? You don't know these people, but you just make up stories in your head about these folks. Oh, and by the way, they're making up stories about you as well. I just want you to understand and know that. But we do this and we don't even think about it. The question is, do we do the same thing when we're interviewing? Do we do the same thing if we just meet another person in another department? Do we do this all day, every day with any of our social interactions? My argument is, yeah, we do. The question is, how do you control that? How do you manage that? So let me try this. I want you to think about just a little word association here. If I said astronaut, firefighter, police chief, engineer, what image comes to mind? Is it a man? Is it a woman? In many instances, it would be a man. In many instances, it would be a white male. The reality is, those professions are not reserved for any one group of people. Those professions are open to everyone. And there are lots of people with lots of different backgrounds that are in those type of jobs. And so I challenge you as you just go through and think about the work that you're doing, your interaction with clients, interaction with one another, is your unconscious bias getting in the way of really good decision making? Because if we're not careful, what happens is we filter in certain information and we filter out certain information. And some of that information that we filter out is based on past experiences. In other words, those good things really are aligned with good things that have happened in our past. Those bad things are aligned either with bad things that have happened or those things that we just never think about because we don't pay attention to the fact that they really matter. And so what happens is we go through our day and we just work ourselves through those things that we processed, and we begin to believe those things, and they become fact in our minds. But I challenge you to really, sometimes you have to just challenge your assumptions, challenge your thought process. Ask yourself, why? Why do I believe this? Because that way you can make better decisions. So what I'm getting at is, as you look at your business and really interacting with one another and interacting with your clients, challenge yourself to ask the question, why? Challenge yourself to really go down the path of asking, could there be another option? Could there be another way or a better way to approach the situation? Is there another way to do business that's really going to work for us? So let's talk a little bit more about your business and why diversity, equity, and inclusion is really important. There are things that are happening to us every single day that's really driving our behavior, and we must really pay attention to it. One of those things is the changing demographic. If you think about the demographics just of the United States and the type of changes that are happening here, it has a major impact on the way we do business, the way we go to market, the way we bring people on board. There are a lot of things that impact the changing demographic. Workforce is getting older, and at the same time, it's getting younger. We've got baby boomers moving out, we've got millennials and Gen Zs coming in. And so now you have many, many different generations in the workforce trying to work together. Technology is impacting us. We've got more technology than we've ever had in our lives. And so technology is having an impact on our business. Employee expectations are changing. Customer expectations are changing. And when we think about all of those things happening at the same time, how do we manage these things? It'd be one thing if we only had to manage one at a time, but these items are converging all at the same time. And so the challenge for us is to really think about all of these different trends that are impacting us every day. So as we look at all these trends happening at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, what are some of the potential business challenges? What are some of the potential business opportunities? And then more importantly, what do we do? How does it impact our organization? How does it impact IMA? And what are some of the things that we can do to address some of these things? Because they are happening, and they're happening rapidly all at the same time. So when we think about our business and these various trends that are impacting us, we've got to make sure that we can stop, pause a moment, and really pay attention to the landscape and what's happening so that we can begin to have some significant impact on our business. And when I talk about our business, I'm talking about our value systems, I'm talking about the strategy that we have, because none of that happens without really understanding how people are going to impact that. So if we just really think about all of these trends that are coming together and we overlay that with our value systems and our strategy, then we've got some work to do. We've got some work to do. It can be fun work, it can be challenging work, or it can drive you nuts if you leave the people piece of it out. It is about people. It is about interacting with one another. It is about helping people to be able to bring their whole self to work every single day. None of this is done without people. And remember, people are diverse. There are similarities, there are differences that exist among us. It's those things that make us come together. It's those things, understanding and leveraging those differences, understanding and leveraging those similarities. But it's really about how we make sure that we utilize the resources that we have, our human resources, to really drive our business. One thing I want to make very clear here is that here at IMA, we embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are uncompromising in our support and encouragement of all voices. So what does that mean to us? That means that we've got to make sure that we're stepping up and doing our part. So what's the call to action? There are lots of things that we can do. The first thing I want you to do is to challenge your own thoughts and assumptions about things. Challenge your own thoughts and assumptions about people, your staff, your clients. Just challenge yourself to really think differently and open your mind and just envision the possibilities of just looking at things differently. The other thing that I'd like for you to do is to really spend some time just talking to people. Become comfortable with your discomfort. Sometimes people feel like, I'm afraid to have that conversation because it's an uncomfortable conversation. If we're really going to get to where we need to get to, we've got to learn to be comfortable with our discomfort. It's okay. Don't be afraid that you're going to say the wrong thing. The likelihood is that you're not going to say the wrong thing. Become comfortable with your discomfort. I talked about these converging trends. Spend some time and really think about those trends. Think about what's happening relative to demographics, employee expectations, company expectations, the changing the societal changes. Think about some of those things and how they're impacting your business. Spend some time and just go through the exercise and ask yourself, what are the challenges? What are the opportunities? And how does it impact me? How does it impact my job? And what can I do? Not only myself, but with my team, what are the things that we can do to really begin to have some impact? The reality is, when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not going away. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of who we've been all of our lives. We may have called it different things, but we are really and truly simply dealing with people. It's about people, folks. And so how do we get the best out of people? How do we get the best out of ourselves so that we can support not only our teams and our staffs, but how can we support our clients? How can we support this business? How can we do better? How can we win together?